Hello and welcome to Nolan Play Sports. Today we're going to be talking about a variety of topics, starting with some breaking news. We're recording this on a Friday, and it is rumored that the Dodgers are pursuing Rockies third baseman Nolan Arenado. Pat, thoughts?
Andrew Friedman, could he possibly make it even better? I don't like that Dodgers team is so good. If they add Nolan Arenado to that team, I'm not sure if they're going to lose a single game.
They were overall one of the most dominant teams. And now you're going to add in the greatest defensive third baseman in the game and definitely the greatest third baseman potential to hit 40 dingers. It's unfair. So definitely some big news with that. We're talking about the Braves earlier in the week. Drew Smyly, who was one of the top pitching free agents, signed a 1-year, $11 million contract. Smyly wasn't incredible, and I don't think deserved $11 million. In a 60-game season, he went 0-1 with a 3.42 ERA. He did have 14.4 strikeouts per nine and a 201 FIP, so very good numbers there. But he hasn't been a reliable starter since 2015, and he missed all of 2017 and 18 due to injuries. So what are your thoughts on the Smyly signing? Too much money, just enough, and what do you think this leaves for the Braves?
Yeah, I don't know what's going on here exactly. This seems like the type of move you make at the end of free agency when there's not much pitching left, like they did last year, signing Cole Hamels for $18 million. But right at the beginning of free agency, one of the first free agents to sign $11 million to what? He's going to be a 4 at best.
Yeah, and the Braves have Ian Anderson, Mike Soroka, and Max Fried, not in that order at all, but lined up in front of him. So you're paying $11 million. Probably, I don't know this for a fact, but Fried, Soroka, and Anderson's contract, I'm assuming all of their contracts combined are less than $11 million. And they are all much better pitchers than Smyly. That one didn't make a lot of sense to me. He's a good pitcher. He's more of a swingman than a starter, and you're not going to pay your swingman $11 million. Talking about some pitchers, Mike Clevinger, who the Padres acquired at the deadline, had a great 2020 season and is overall a very consistent pitcher. Signed a 2-year, $22 million extension, and Tommy John. What trend?
It's a rough one for San Diego.
But are you seeing like a trend? I mean, Clevenger's a harder thrower in general, but guys like Syndergaard and Sale and Severino needing Tommy John. Are we seeing something that like guys who throw hard are having more problems with this?
Yeah, I mean, it certainly wouldn't be surprising. I mean, you look at that list of guys, especially when you look at Clevenger with his curveball and Severino and Sale with their sliders. They do like to throw those pitches a lot and use them in most counts, not even count specific, just as they do their fastballs. So, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if we start seeing a lot more details on that type of thing on the Tommy John side.
Okay. Let's talk now on Theo Epstein, one of the most successful executives in recent MLB history, is stepping down from the Cubs. He said he's not planning on a job in 2021. He's only 46 years old, and for all he's accomplished, that is very impressive. If he comes back in 2022, is there a team you think he could? I mean, working with the Cubs and the Red Sox, they were large market teams that had struggled recently. I know he doesn't say he wants a job in 2021, but I mean, if the money's there, the money's there. So I'm thinking either the Phillies or the Mets, who are both large market teams that have struggled as of late. Do you think there's any other teams, or do you agree or disagree where Epstein could land?
I was thinking about this earlier today, and he said he wants a new challenge. Something about the teams that are going to be challenges to build back up going forward. And my first thought, of course, as I think many would be the Pittsburgh Pirates. However, just last offseason, they hired Ben Cherington to take over as their general manager. So, depending on what direction they go in, a little out of the box one could be the Texas Rangers, especially because with their manager, not sure how long he's going to be there. Could be a whole revamp of the whole staff there.
Former Padres first baseman and former All-Star Yonder Alonso had retired. Alonso had a pretty great career, 100 dingers, a 259 batting average, was a pretty good first baseman, and hasn't had a lot of success lately, so I wouldn't say I didn't see it coming, but Yonder, good luck in retirement, man. Another guy we want to shout out is former Dodgers manager Tommy Lasorda. He was hospitalized early this week, so make sure to keep Tommy in your prayers. Great manager, especially at the 1988. I wouldn't call them, well, pretty much the Miracle Dodgers. And it's really sad to see some of those guys get in situations. So, yeah, keep Tommy in your prayers. Pat, this is a big one. Kyler Murray, in an interview said, with Tiki Barber, said, "I miss baseball. I wish I could do both. I definitely feel like I could. Never say never." So everything points to that. For all of you who don't know, I'm assuming you do, Kyler Murray is the starting quarterback for the Arizona Cardinals. Very great, young, very fast passer. I'm showing a clip right now of the DeAndre Hopkins catch, which was incredible.
MVP candidate.
Yeah, definitely. Athletics drafted him 9th overall in 2018. Decided to play football. I don't know if it was exactly his decision, but when you win the Heisman at Oklahoma, it's kind of hard to do. In his senior year at Oklahoma, he batted .296 with 10 homers, 47 RBIs, 10 stolen bases, and a .954 OPS. So obviously the talent's there. He's still very young at only 23. Do you think he might follow down the paths of Deion Sanders and Bo Jackson and be a multi-sport athlete?
You know, I think he will. I think, well, it was quite clear that his first choice was baseball at the time. He had chosen baseball. He was planning on reporting to the A's and go to rookie ball and head through the system, try to make it in the MLB. But you're the Heisman and going to be the number one overall pick. That's a tough one to pass up on. So,
yeah.
But even though a lot of people are worried about injuries these days, that's another thing to think about. The injuries that, for example, Bo Jackson faced during his football career. He could shy away from it for skepticism of how healthy it is to be a professional athlete at such a high level in two different sports.
Yeah, and all eyes would be on him, especially like Bo Jackson. I think a little bit more Bo Jackson and Deion Sanders. I don't want to, this isn't to be rude in any way, but those guys were freaks of nature. They were unstoppable.
Yeah, I was just going to say.
Yeah.
Kyler would really be defying the odds because you look at a guy like Bo Jackson, he's big and he's tough and he's strong. Then you got Kyler Murray, who is not that big. Obviously, he's pretty strong because he's an NFL quarterback.
Yeah.
But he is 5'9", 10,
Yeah.
I believe. So he's not that tall. He's about Marcus Stroman's size.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, he's such a fun player to watch on the football field, and I didn't watch him that much in college, but I support the Oakland Athletics, so it would be obviously super great to have him be there manning the outfield with the likes of Raymond Laureano and batting in the same spots with Matt Olson and Matt Chapman. I think that would be a really fun team for him to play with. Next guy on our list, seems like you've heard this one before, but Robinson Cano was suspended for performance-enhancing drugs. Cano had a fantastic bounce-back 2020 season, batting .316, hitting 10 homers, 30 RBIs, with an .896 OPS, and a little bit more in 49 games, I believe. So Cano was great, played at an all-star level, but suspended once again. He was also suspended for 81 games in 2019 2018, and he will be suspended for the entire 2021 season. If you're the Mets and you don't have to pay $24 million to Cano next year, what's your move?
Well, you go and you get either his replacement, or when you have a guy like Jeff McNeil who could play the infield and the outfield, you find a player that you want. Say if you want an outfielder in the likes of George Springer, Marcell Ozuna, Jackie Bradley Jr. that they've been connected to, or go after an infielder, a guy like a LeMahieu, or trade for Lindor, as they've been rumored. And, it is disappointing to see this happen to Cano again. He's an older player now. He was on his way to a Hall of Fame career, and I think I would still argue him for the Hall of Fame. I really believe that's a for sure, because when you think about it, you take 2017 and 2020. These years are late in his career.
Yeah.
Now, you say, like I was saying, late in his career, didn't do that much. But at the same time, those late years in your career are what push you over the top.
Yeah, and right now I'm just going to read off some of his numbers. And these are Hall of Fame numbers. The 303 career batting average, 334 homers, 1,302 runs batted in, 2,624 hits, a 68.9 WAR, 8 All-Stars, a World Series win in 2009, 2 Gold Gloves, and 5 Silver Sluggers. So absolutely Hall of Fame numbers. But we've seen this with guys, not as much recently, but guys who are late in their careers, not able to keep up with some of the bigger hitters, go to something like steroids to improve their game. And it's really sad, because I don't know, guys like, you can look at it both ways, because guys like Barry Bonds, who were having outstanding careers before they allegedly went on steroids, Roger Clemens too.
Now there's another interesting thing to look at, because you look at Bonds. Bonds had 3 MVPs before he headed to San Francisco and got on the roids.
Yeah.
Now, you look at Cano, obviously, Hall of Fame numbers before the roids also. But then after the roids, Robinson Cano wasn't hitting 72 homers in a season.
Yeah.
So, where do you rank it? Are you just saying Bonds was a better player to begin with, so once he went onto the steroids, it made him play like the greatest player of all time?
Which he was. Yeah. Friday, when we recorded our last one that night, they announced the Hall of Fame ballots. So we're going to look at these. We did a poll on our Instagram page looking at who you guys wanted to see in the Hall of Fame. And it was pretty surprising. This year's ballot is not as exciting as previous years that have had Derek Jeter and Mariano Rivera and Chipper Jones and Pedro Martinez, Mike Piazza, guys like that of recent years. But we're seeing, because it's such, I don't want to call it weak, because these guys are far from weak. They're some of the better players of their eras, but it's not as strong a first-year class as previous ones. So it's likely.
Yeah, you're not seeing Rivera's and Griffey's out here.
No. But so that's going to mean guys who've gotten close, but not just there yet. That was Larry Walker until last year, which I think he absolutely deserved a trip to the Hall of Fame. But guys like Curt Schilling got 70% last year, arguably one of the better pitchers of his era, like I said, but also is rumored to be on steroids at points of his career. So I think looking at this right now, 90% of people had Barry Bonds on their ballot. He had the most percent of ballots, and it's not that surprising. I mean, before using steroids, he was near 400 home runs, near 400 stolen bases, and had 3 MVPs. Those are no doubt.
Gotta happen. It's gotta happen. Gotta happen.
Yeah, you could say okay, steroids, you do them, you're not in the Hall of Fame, and I understand the people who are saying that. I understand that. And people are like, oh, if I had been on steroids, I could have hit 70 homers. But if you look at the players who are on steroids, no one even gets close to Bond's numbers. I mean, consistently hitting well over 50 home runs, getting on base sometimes even close to 60% of the time. So much that you were getting intentionally walked more than like entire teams. That's just incredible. His dominance on the baseball field, I think he deserves it, but I also think that guys like Pete Rose and Joe Jackson should be admitted to the Hall of Fame as well. Especially because Rose, the reason he's not in the Hall of Fame isn't even because of his playing career. Don't put him in as a manager. Put him as a player. He wasn't going to make it as a manager anyway.
Way the game still is right now.
Yeah.
And I am hopeful, and I do think we will see Barry Bonds in the Hall of Fame soon. Very soon.
So just to kind of talk about that, some other people who receive very high percentages, they need 75% to make it in the Hall of Fame. I think Bonds is like peaked out around 60, but because there's not a lot of outstanding newcomers, I think he's going to make it this year. So you guys had Bonds getting 90%. Roger Clemens got 80%. Jeff Kent, one of the better second basemen of all time, surprisingly hasn't gotten more percent, especially because he won an MVP in the steroid era, not using steroids. So very impressive for that. 80% for him. Kurt Schilling, 70% for one of the better defenders of all time, Omar Vizquel, and also 80% for Billy Wagner, probably the greatest lefty reliever of all time. It's a shame he's not in the Hall of Fame yet. Guys who didn't do as well, not many of the newcomers received votes. Tim Hudson got 1, Torrey Hunter got 4. But guys who didn't do that well, I expect to do a little bit better. Andrew Jones only got about 30%. Andy Pettit only got about 30%. Scott Rowland only got about 40%. So seeing those guys do a little bit worse than I expected, I think that people are ready. And this isn't a very large sample size. I think people are ready to see guys like Bonds and Clemens and Schilling in the Hall of Fame.
Where was Helton?
Helton, he received 50%, which I understand people are like, oh, Coors effect, he might make my ballot. And that was kind of how it went with Larry Walker. But Helton's numbers are incredible. Todd Helton, one of the better first basemen hitting-wise, 316 batting average, 369 homers, 1,406 RBIs, career 953 OPS. Definitely should have won the 2000 MVP, but a 5-time All-Star, 3-time Gold Glove, so he had the defense too. Helton deserves to be in the Hall of Fame.
I agree.
Yeah, you and I both made our ballots. I'm going to show them up on the screen now. I had Bonds, Schilling, Kent, Billy Wagner, Todd Helton, Roger Clemens, Omar Vizquel, Torrey Hunter, Scott Rowland. You had Bonds, Schilling, Kent, Wagner, Helton, Clemens, and Rowland. I had on Hunter and Vizquel along with your guys.
Vizquel, I don't know. I don't think he's as good as the rest of the guys on my list just because of his fielding. And then I don't think Torrey Hunter's a first ballot Hall of Famer. I think.
No, I don't either. But I'm looking at Torrey Hunter and I'm seeing quite a few more than 2,000 hits, over 300 homers, around a 280 batting average, and 9 Gold Gloves. I think people kind of look over him as much because he didn't have as many of the accolades. He wasn't like a 20-time All-Star. He's not winning MVPs and hitting 50 dingers. But I think Torrey Hunter deserves to be in the Hall of Fame, and because it's such a weak class, I think that's why he made my ballot. I was open to voting for a few more guys. Vizquel, he's kind of, I won't put him in the same zone as Ozzie Smith, but he's kind of, in that case, on the outside looking in, almost as good a defender as Ozzie Smith. He didn't have as many like All-Stars and Silver Sluggers as Ozzie Smith. Neither of them were particularly Hall of Fame hitters. Ozzie Smith, I don't think, has 50 homers in his career. But Vizquel's playing in an era with Jeter and Garcia Parra and Rodriguez and some really great shortstops. So I don't know. I think Vizquel deserves to be in there. Outstanding defender, probably a top 10 defensive player of all time.
I think that we are just about good for this week. A bit of a slow week in baseball. I wish we had more free agent signings to talk about, or at least a trade or something like that, but teams are taking their sweet time.
Yeah, usually it takes them until about December for any major moves to be made. Or even sometimes later, if we remember Harper and Machado, that free agency took forever. I mean, I didn't care where Alex Avila was going, really, but because it was taking so long, I'm like, oh my gosh, Alex Avila's headed to the Cubs or the White Sox. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. Hope you're doing well. Make sure to like and subscribe and check out the Instagram. We are at Double Play Sports 2020. 14 MLB players now have liked posts, including guys of the likes of Bernie Williams and Robinson Cano and Marcelo Zuna. So make sure to check it out.
Thank you to Nick Swisher and Andrew Jones for checking out the page today.
Yes, that was very exciting. And leave a like, leave a subscribe, leave a follow, support us any way you can, and we'll see you next week.